Welcome to the Science and Paranormal with Dr. Yana and Dr. Elliot, where science meets the unexpected, where we delve deep into the mysteries that straddle the line between scientific inquiry and paranormal. Get ready for a mind-altering journey as we embark on this phenomenal discovery together on United Public Radio Network 107.7 FM.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Science and the Paranormal. We're broadcasting live tonight on the United Public Radio Network, the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 FM, out of New Orleans and also on Roku TV. You're with Dr. Elliot and the most fascinating, beautiful Dr. Yana. And tonight we have a very special guest, Keith Linder. And he is going to be talking to us tonight about the Bothell Hell House. I'll turn it over to Dr. Yana.
Yes, hello, ladies and gentlemen. That is such a wonderful introduction. Thank you very much. So I appreciate it. You made my day, my evening, and we're live on Tuesday night. With us, we have a special guest, Keith Linder, like you said, Dr. Elliot. He's a professional in the IT field, having worked at some of the largest tech companies in the world, like Dell, Microsoft, Phillips Healthcare, and Verizon. The interesting book, which is not just interesting, which is a fantastic book that he has written, came from his experience when he and his girlfriend relocated to a house in Bothell, Washington, near Seattle. Their experiences in that house introduced them to the paranormal community and forever changed their lives. Wouldn't it? All of ours? So, whether you believe in the supernatural or not, the evidence and stories presented here may make you reconsider your beliefs. And the book is called Bothell Hell House. It is a significant contribution to poltergeist research. Ooh, I'd like to hear about that. Hello, Keith.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
We are so happy you're here with us today.
So am I.
Can't wait to hear about the Hell House.
Yeah, hell's a good word to describe it.
Yeah, because hell is a very strong word, and we all have some sort of understanding from all of the religious perspectives what hell is, or supposed to be, right? So you calling that house a hell house probably has some resemblance to it. So why hell house, Keith?
Well, good question. I think the word hell encompasses, to torment. And I think anybody who studied poltergeist activity or experienced poltergeist activity, unfortunately, can all agree there's a high level of being tormented. The house occupants I'm talking about. And that's what me and Tina were. We were tormented pretty much from day one. But it didn't start to feel like hell till much later, but it has to start somewhere. Being tormented unrelentlessly. So it's nonstop. You never know when hell is going to erupt. So when coming up with the name, you want to put some sort of familiarity with the geography, the locality. You want to plug the city the ordeal happened in for research purposes, for historical purposes. So it just felt right to call it the Bothell Hell House. Now, what I didn't know at the time, and I couldn't know, somebody else introduced it to me. Bothell is really a city in the state of Washington, suburb of Seattle. But in the word Bothell is the word hell. So there you go. It was almost baked in, if you will. Yeah.
How interesting, because the words, they have so much meaning and they leave an imprint on everything, right? I remember that I used to live right by the sign where my house was located called the Dead End. I always hated that sign, the Dead End, and this is what exactly it was for me. So I moved away the hell out of there.
Yeah, it's like a Stephen King movie. Yeah. If you live next to a sign that says the dead end, yeah, that could mean some
That was eerie. And now that we're talking about the poltergeist activity, I believe that probably something that of that sort I also had. Uh, I had a lot of cooking going on in my kitchen at that time, a lot of cooking and the pots banging and falling. So I guess that could be contributed, right, to the poltergeist phenomenon.
Yeah, I mean, the basic definition that I heard when I discovered or experienced poltergeist is uh, noisy ghosts, right? That's what has been the word polter
Hmm.
derived from in geist. So the noisy ghosts, old poltergeist cases um, talk about the clanking, the throwing of dishes, the ransacking of the kitchen. Usually in those old cases, you find most of the activity resided in the kitchen. Um, for us, activity resided in 4 rooms: my office, hallway, kitchen, and master bedroom.
So there was a room where it wouldn't touch.
Well, all the rooms it touched, but it was to a degree. I can't think of any room that it did not touch. Um, some room more than others, obviously. I would say the rooms we lived in the most, it touched for obvious reasons. Uh, the dangerous room, the most dangerous room, and I put this in my book, was my office because that's where uh, two spontaneous fires erupted coming out of my office, which is the upstairs bedroom, converted into an office. Seemed to be the ground zero for activity, which was also my AKA man cave. It's where I work from while working from home. If you're familiar with my house layout, it's upstairs. It's got all the technology, office, computer monitors, TV, Wi-Fi, router, and all that stuff. That was ground zero for my technology, so it sort of made sense why I would pick up that room because that's the room I spend more time in the most when I'm not with my girlfriend.
So
Very
Keith,
interesting that
yeah.
you had the spontaneous fires as well, because that is one
Yeah,
characteristic about poltergeist that makes it different from an apparitional haunting is either spontaneous fire or spontaneous water. So that's really
yeah,
you did have a
yeah.
bit of a mixed case though in yours, didn't you? Because there was an incident where you witnessed an apparition in your case. Tell us about that.
Yeah, the first, I didn't know it was apparition sighting at the time. Like I said, I was very unfamiliar with the paranormal. But yeah, the first apparitional sighting was the summer of 2012. Remember, we moved in May of 2012. At that time, when I saw the apparition, we had already been experiencing activity. By that, I mean missing items, items we're finding that neither one of us own, door slams, footsteps, and the floating plant. But the night I saw the apparition was I was in my office just working away at the computer. My girlfriend Tina was taking a bath, and um, all of a sudden the lights in my office where I'm sitting uh, just go off. I mean, and I hear the click. I hear a click sound like the light switch. Okay, and I didn't know what to expect. I thought it was a joke that my girlfriend was playing on me because I kid you not, sort of like I'm sitting now in my office where I live now. I pushed myself away from the table and looked toward the direction of the door, which is where the light switch is, and expecting to see my girlfriend at the time and sort of admonish her because we had an agreement we wouldn't play practical jokes on each other because we got a ghost problem. But I kid you not, when I turned toward the door, there was a lady standing there. Obviously, it wasn't Tina, and yeah, that took me aback. Number one, there's a lady standing in my door, but she's all gray, and she's not see-through. She's not translucent. She's not transparent. She's not gleaming with halo lights around her like you see in the movies. Um, but she's all gray, and this is happening very fast. And she turns toward the left because there's the washroom, the laundry room, and the door's closed. And she's trying to go through the door. She's trying to not open the door, but go through it. but she can't, and I use this word, I don't know if it exists, demanifest. She's having a hard time negotiating going through that door. To finally, she gives up, turns it back to me, and goes running down the hall. She just goes, turns the corner. I still don't know what I'm looking at. It's more instinct than me doing this on purpose. I get up out of my chair and give chase. Like, okay, what is that? And I get through the hallway, and naturally I turn the corner, poof, she's gone. Okay, so now in my mind, I'm like, what happened? What did I just see? Okay, and I turn right, and I enter the master bedroom, and I go all the way in. I go to the bathroom, and Tina's chin deep in bubble bath. And I'm like, I tell Tina, she looks at me, and I'm like, I saw it. She's like, you saw what? I'm like, no, I saw it. I saw her. There was a woman standing in my door, and she turned the light off and took off running. And keep in mind, up until that time, this is about July, early July, late June, we had so much low-level activity, level 1 activity, but we didn't have nothing tangible. I would say nothing, no face, if you will, to put to this activity. We had been told we have a kid ghost and these things will die down or whatever. Nobody's quoting apparitions or poltergeists. So when I saw this lady, I was like, okay, but she didn't look like a lady from, the 1800s or the 1900s. She looked like a lady from the 21st century. So I was like, okay, but I couldn't understand why was she all gray. And from my understanding of ghosts and what I see in Hollywood, a lot of that is in my psyche. So I'm expecting to see something transparent or translucent or floating. She did none of that. I heard the pitter pats. I tell everybody when I tell the story, because I think it's significant. When she took off, darted off, you heard the pitter pat, the feet.
Mm.
Okay, so she's giving sound. The light switch that went off, that's sound. Okay, so she was, for lack of a better word, fully manifested and solid. And how she disappeared is beyond me.
This is so interesting.
Really fascinating because no, go ahead, Dr. Yana. Go ahead.
It's just your screen froze and you weren't saying anything. It's an interesting connection. As I was listening to you, it is so funny that you said, "Yeah, I'm entering the bathroom. My girlfriend is taking a bubble bath, and there I'm telling her I saw another woman." It's like, well, what? Yeah. There's another woman in the house. Did you say that? Like, what woman?
That's what my brain went when I said, we have no kids, we have no pets, and under no stretch of the wildest imagination is another woman going to be in your house, let alone standing in your doorway, let alone turning off your lights and take off running. It didn't look nothing like Tina. So I never thought it was Tina. It's never me, oh, I'm going to chase Tina down when I catch up to her, what I'm going to do. No, it wasn't Tina, no stretch of the imagination. It was not Tina. But who was it? And it just, she was gone. Now, and Elliot knows this because he might have read book 1. She's going to make 2 more appearances in the next year to 3 years in the house. But that was the first time I saw her.
Was there a reason for her appearance? Did you learn about it?
Well, fast forward to I later discovered the apparition, her and the other 2 sightings that I saw of her. The one that was gray. Number 2, she appeared in 2014, September, October. She was all white. Okay. Same lady, but all white now, full bodied, everything. Going by the office once again. She looked like the previous tenant, Rhonda Jimenez, who lived in the house with her family 2008, 2009, who I found out in 2014, earlier 2014, because we were still getting her mail in our mailbox, and I found her on Facebook, who admitted to me via Facebook chat, and she described the house as a living hell. There goes that word again, her words, not mine. She said it was a living hell living in that place, and she almost died. She tried to commit suicide 5 times in that house. her son saw shadowy figures out the corner of his eye in that house. His bedroom was my office where I saw the gray lady. And she just calmly said he still sees shadowy figures to this day. But the gray lady and the white lady looked just like her. Now, Rhonda was very much alive then. She's not alive anymore. She finally successfully committed suicide, unfortunately, September of 2016. But it was just eerie because I didn't have a face or a name because the first time I saw the gray lady, I didn't know Rhonda.
But now, Keith, it was not, it was her.
Yes.
But she did not die in that house, right?
No, she was alive when I called her summer of when we chatted. Summer of 24. She was very much alive.
And it would look like her.
It looked like her. Now, she had 4 or 5 suicide attempts. I did find 911 records. And she told me this. She told me this in our chat. She tried to commit suicide. She became very depressed. So I did find the records, the 911 records to back up her claim there. But when I saw the white lady the second time, then I knew. I was like, that's Rhonda. But then that gave rise to the other, like he was saying earlier, but I did not know the term, but I have not done research of what you call a living apparition or a crisis apparition.
Yes, crisis apparition. That's correct.
Yeah, take your pick.
What is it, gentlemen? What is the crisis apparition?
Crisis apparition usually appears to somebody that you're very close to. It could be a close family, friend, or relative, and they appear to you in a state of crisis. It can also be a living individual as well, not somebody that's deceased. I've actually investigated. They call them call cases. Investigated a case between a mother and a daughter. The daughter was on a date with an abusive boyfriend, got kicked out of his car in another state, and was left on the side of the highway. As all this was playing out, the mother in another state in Rhode Island witnessed this happen, but it looked like it happened in her driveway, when in fact it actually happened in Massachusetts on a dark highway. Now, with deceased crisis apparitions, it's not when they're deceased. It's when they're just, in almost like in a near death state, like they're in a critical condition. Mm-hmm. Their apparition can appear to you. But again, there have been call cases with living people where they're not in a critical life or death situation that can also appear to people.
What's so interesting about his story is that she would stop at the threshold of the office and she wouldn't be able to cross it, right, Keith?
Yes, good point. She never came into the office. And the first time she was gray, and I'm still trying to, and I've been doing research, I cannot find a good answer when I can lay my hat on as to why did she transition from gray to white? There's got to be something behind that. Because the first time I saw she was gray.
Yeah, that part that you described is very unique because, like you said, some people have reported apparitions to be, you wouldn't be able to tell it as you or Dr. Yana or myself. Then other people report that they're semi-translucent. Some people might even only report partial apparitions. I've heard people report a ghost arm or just a ghost torso. But in this case, you said the apparition was almost like lacking color, which is quite interesting, but still able to make sound when they run. And that's a fascinating sighting for sure.
Yeah.
Now, the previous owner, the tenant of the place, she said that was her son's room as well. So if he witnessed some apparitions there, and he was evidently terrified, did they, to your knowledge, did any sort of rituals to protect themselves from it? Perhaps it was put on the threshold in that room, so maybe that's why that apparition couldn't cross it.
No, she didn't tell me or admit to anything like that. What she did tell me was her son's bedroom was now my office. That he became very ill in that room. He was almost near death. He developed a rare case of meningitis. He was hospitalized in Seattle Children's, and it was just the entire house was stressful. It was that. husband out of work. She became depressed and alcoholic. And going back to the apparition, something like a cousin to the apparition in Crisis and Living is what the stone tape theory. You know, that theory of something getting frozen is like watching a movie. See, the first time I saw the gray lady, that's an interaction. We interacted, okay? But when I saw the white lady, there was no eye contact. I was typing on my keyboard, and I'm hearing rustling sound coming out the hallway. I'm ignoring it at first because it's just white noise. But it's going on for so long, I finally like, what's that noise? And when I turned toward the direction of the door, which is where the noise was coming from, the rustling, I hear the rustling, like leaves or like paper. And then maybe 10 or 15 seconds as I'm looking at my doorway, here she comes. She's doing this. All white. She never looks into the room. She goes into the room to the right of me, which is another bedroom. But she's holding something. Her arms are like this. I can't make out what she's holding because she's all white, and I can't tell where she begins or ends, but she's holding something. And it goes into that room, and the rustling sound, and once she gets in that room, it all stops. She disappears, and the rustling noise stops. So what's the correlation between the rustling noise and her, or why she was all white? But something very interesting she told me about the office and her son was the shadowy figures, okay, that he was seeing out the corner of his eye while sick, and so they didn't take him seriously. He was very ill, but he reported seeing shadowy figures all the time, and was still seeing them in 2014, living in Yakima, Washington, which is where they moved to after the Bothell House. Well, I never told Tina this until Rhonda told me this because I didn't know how to digest this. By the time I caught up with Rhonda, and she admitted to me that her son was seeing shadowy figures out the corner of his eye, I had already begun seeing shadowy figures going by the hallway door, the same where the gray lady and the white lady was. I didn't know what to make of it. I didn't want to broadcast that out because I didn't know what that meant. In my mind, that couldn't mean anything good. And if I told Tina, she's going to freak out. But it wasn't until Rhonda told me about her son and where his room was that I said, hey, Tina, because I told her everything Rhonda told me. I said, I see these little, about yay big, little creatures, 2 legs, 2 arms, humanoid in stature, very dark, very scaly, and it's like they tiptoe by the door. I've seen them. And but it wasn't until Rhonda told me about her son seeing the same thing. So,
How big were they? Or what color? You said 2 feet, right?
no bigger than 2 feet. Color pitch black, trillion midnights. Yeah.
Nakita, I have a question for you. And I know that we don't ask women those questions, but we should. What's the difference? How old were you when you moved into that house?
How old was I?
Yeah.
Oh, let's see. That was 2012. I'm now 54. I was early 40s.
So you were not a naive, for example, 18-year-old, and even 18-year-olds can be so incredibly smart and street smart as well. So they wouldn't buy into anything like that, and they wouldn't be even scared, right? Although being street smart and encountering poltergeist, of course, will scare the living hell out of you. But you come, being in your early 40s, a serious man from the technological background in IT, working for serious organizations, and not thinking of any poltergeist, apparitional activity, anything into the paranormal. And all of a sudden, you experience that, and that makes you a believer. Now, for all of the people listening and watching us, and those who will be listening and watching, I know that this type of experience not just makes you a believer, but makes you investigate it further, because we, with our critical minds, we want to dig deep and to understand what it is exactly that we saw. Because a lot of skeptics say, for example, I didn't see it and I don't believe it. I never experienced that. And that is justified because it's difficult to even to comprehend, because in our modern world we don't even think about it, right? And if we do, that means that we have experienced that personally.
Yeah, a lot of current researchers today that I've come across, or investigators, uh, the reason why they got into this field is because of an experience they had previously. Some go all the way back as a child, some go back as a young adult, some go back as far as a family member. But you're right. In my background, I'm an IT project manager. I've been in all sort of IT fields, whatnot. But at the core of an IT field is we're problem solvers, we're troubleshooters. No problem is too big that cannot ever reach a conclusion to where you know the root cause. So I tell people, because they're like, weren't you frightened? Weren't you? Yeah, I mean, there was many frightening moments. Don't get me wrong. There was many frightening moments. But what survived the frightening moments was, why is this happening? What is happening? Having sort of an IT sci-fi geeky nerd background, never could have imagined, and still don't, seeing objects teleport, float, appear out of thin air, an apparition going through a solid object, growls, I've heard growls, spontaneous fire, oil manifesting from the wall, not being applied on the wall, coming from the substrate of the wall, the water puddles. Never could have imagined that in a trillion years. It was the things we were seeing in the Bothell House, I would expect to see in a Steven Spielberg movie. With a lot
For
of
example, with the puddles and the oil that you saw, was it palpable? Were you able to touch it? Was the water wet?
Yeah, the water's dirty. Yeah, very wet. Wet is because it took me to get towels and a mop to dry up. Very wet, but no origin. This made no sense where it was located. No pipes, no plumbing. The sounds, the bangs, the objects thrown. Like I said, because it's a two-story home. I can go to my mailbox, like everybody does, get my mail, march all the way upstairs because I have a routine I do every day, and I put my mail next to my keyboard. That's just what I do. Go downstairs, thinking of going downstairs to get a cup of water or something, and the mail that I just put on my keyboard, 5 or 6 envelopes, those same letters, which I just saw less than a second ago, less than 5 seconds ago, are at the base of the stairs. The letters beat me. There's nobody in this. It's a hallway. Nobody coming around me carrying letters, leaving at the base of the stairs. But by the time I get to the base of the stairs, those letters that were in my keyboard, which I just left no less than 5 or 3 seconds ago, and so that just makes you. It makes you an investigator. It makes you a researcher, because you're like, and what threw me for the win was, oh, this happens to other people. When I read other poltergeist cases and I see the similarities, and especially how far back I've been able to go back to see cases, and I'm like, oh, so it redefines and it puts a new belief system in my head, in Tina's head, and anybody else who experienced poltergeist.
Yeah, and you describe a lot of common characteristics with a poltergeist case. There's the spontaneous fire, the spontaneous water, items materializing and dematerializing, objects being thrown in unusual trajectories, and then of course you had the plant levitate in your living room, which is actually quite a spectacle to witness. I've been investigating the paranormal for 27 years. And a lot of my good colleagues have never seen a levitation. I've seen materialization and dematerialization, but never a levitation. So very fascinating. And you made an interesting point. You talked about your IT background. And you're right. In IT, it's not just like you have an employee call you and say, hey, my computer's not working. And you check 1 or 2 things and can't figure it out and just say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't help you. I got to go on to the next call. Like, as an IT person, you have to do a lot of investigating in the computer world because you have to solve that problem. Do you think your IT background played a role in you becoming, so fascinated and dedicated to the research of this type of phenomena?
Yeah, I think the IT, also the IT, my IT background helped me gather the data. One thing, researchers who come into the Bothell home to research, I was a good record keeper. And in IT, you have to be stellar documentation. Okay, we document everything, troubleshooting, everything. What was the resolution and whatnot. So I began to do a written diary, a video diary, timestamped everything. I just kept a spreadsheet, backed up the spreadsheet, put it on the cloud, put it on the cloud. Because some of my hard drives are still missing to this day. The Portuguese started taking hard drives, SD cards, thumbsticks, thumb drives, Wi-Fi, a motion camera. They start taking these things. These things start disappearing or being broken or destroyed. You rearrange MAC addresses, and that's almost impossible to do, to rearrange a MAC address on a device. So I realized I utilized my background. I went to my strength, which was IT and project management, and I found I paid dividends for individuals like yourself who come in and you talk to a house experiencer or a poltergeist experiencer, and you're trying to determine what's fact and fiction, right? You're trying to determine credibility. And what they're saying, does what they're saying match on what I see? And does their story change from whenever I interview them? And so I was able to show 2 years or a year worth of diary, and then they ask me, and then they read the diary and they say, okay. And then, they find the evidence, and then they say, okay, the evidence is matching what he said. Case in point, Rhonda telling me that she tried to commit suicide in the home. No other team ever thought to call the county, Snohomish County, and request 911 records. If you live in a home, you have the right to request any 911 records to your home. I just thought it was a Hail Mary, and did contacted my county office and say I lived there, proved that I did live there, and asked for all the 911 records ever to that house. And lo and behold, they gave them to me. And then when I read the year that Rhonda lived there, I found the 911 response calls that she already told me. And what I saw in the notes were the police and the sheriff's office, what they saw when they responded. And that was proof, and it was, very to, support her claim and story. So I did the same thing with myself. So,
were you able to publish those police reports or not in your book?
Those police reports are in my book. They're in book 2. Yes, the 911 PDFs are in book 2. Yes.
That is incredible. All right.
For anyone that is interested in Keith's book, version 2.0 is available on Amazon, The Bothell Hell House. And Keith also has a second book. Is it The Physics of Poltergeist?
Second book is Attachments, which is a continuation because I'm still living in the house when the second book came out. Both books, Bothell and Attachments, think of it as a part 1, part 2, if you will. The benefit to your listeners and readers is, as an IT, once again, relying on my background, is there are links there in the book. It's much easier if you got an ebook, you can just click, and it will take you to the evidence. It will take you to the YouTube channel, to the SoundCloud. You will hear the voices, you will hear the sounds, the thumping. Some of these videos is what I captured or was able to capture when they happen. So when you see me hearing a loud bang for the first time, I don't edit it, I don't slice it up, I don't spruce it up. This is just raw. So you click on that and boom, I put you, the reader. So I want the reader to get an idea of what's it like investigating a loud noise at 3 a.m. in the morning on the other side of the house. It's not good. So there's the 911 reports you mentioned. I put that in there. Like I said, I don't want anything on me. I want it on the cloud. I want it on the internet. It's got to survive me. It's got to survive the Bothell House. When you read the 911 reports and the police officer, once again, tangible evidence, his words, not mine. This is 2008, 2009. Me and Tina weren't even a couple then. We didn't meet till 2010. And he's writing what he found when he walks into that house. And once you see his report, you know that me and Tina never had a chance living in that house. Never. It was already, it was doomed to fail on day one.
But then you lived for 4 years. You persevered for 4 years. So what made you finally move from there?
Actually, what made me finally move Well, I tell people this also. I lived there 4 years, from May 2012 to May 2016. The activity did stop for the entire year of 2013. So it did stop. It came back with a vengeance, though, in 2014, but it did stop. But anyways, I moved out after 2 paranormal teams, one in the United States and one in the UK. Steve Mara, parapsychologist Steve Mara, Nick Kyle, and Don Phillips came and lived in the house for 2.5 weeks, early 2016, January, and I believe April, and found a treasure trove of evidence. They just found a treasure trove of evidence. So they were able to substantiate our claims. And that was always my goal, was whoever comes to this house after us are going to come in with a lot of knowledge. See, nobody told us. Nobody told us the house was haunted. I asked the landlord, the owner. He was sort of coy about it, bait and switch. He didn't want to admit to it. But he never visited the house while we were there. He never came. Even when we told him all this stuff was happening, he could have thrown us out after the fire, second we did. But he never came to the house. In the 4 years there, he only came to the house twice. Day one to give me the keys, then 4 years later to pick up the keys.
Yeah.
But the investigators came in and got all this evidence and published it out. And then after that, I said, okay, it's time to go. It's time to go. The activity was showing signs of resurfacing again, talking about high, level 5 level poltergeist activity. So 4 years, I think once I got the substantiation that I needed and the community needed, yeah. Now, what did it cost me? Obviously, it cost me a lot of renovation, a lot of repair. My ex-girlfriend, the activity played a huge role in our breakup. Rhonda, there is a death associated with the house. Rhonda did successfully commit suicide in September 2016. And I blame the house because in my conversations with her, she was never right after leaving that house. And she told me, she said she was never right after leaving that house. And Ellie, you appreciate this. And this is just told to me. My friends, I was not there. I had a horrible accident, so I couldn't make it to a wine tasting. The day I had this accident, my friends started blowing up my cell phone because they had saw me roaming around the wine room, and one of them followed me. They say I walked in, past everybody, even past them, and then walked to the men's room, and one of them got up from his chair to go chase me down, like, hey, we're over here. Where you go? We're over here. They thought I had changed my mind and decided to join them anyways. By the time we got to the corner of the hallway that leads to all the men and women's bathroom, they said I was gone. And that's when they started blowing up my phone. They're like, Pete, are you here? And I'm sort of mending my wounds, laying on the couch, and I'm getting all these text messages from them like, no, guys, I told you I'm sitting this one out. I got hurt really bad earlier today. I said, why y'all blowing my phone? They said, we just saw you. All three of us. I said, and my mom like, come on, guys, come on. You saw a look-alike. You had to know that. And to this day, I tried to twist their arm. You had to see it. They're like, no, dude. All three of them. These are IT
this
guys.
Is so interesting.
These are IT guys, Microsoft guys, Amazon guys, Boeing guys. These are not guys that's going to. You think I'm analytical and that these guys, and they would not. None of them would play a joke like on me. None of them know about the Gray Lady and all the intricacies surrounding that. None of them know about the paranormal, but they all said we saw you. And I can look at their eyes. You know what? It takes one to know one. I know how my eyes look when I saw the Gray Lady when I was talking to Tina. When I talk to them, their eyes look the same way.
What's so interesting about it is that there was a your phantom going as well, your impersonator, and there was an impersonator of Rhonda, the previous tenant of that house, right? And you saw it several times, so that phantom existed, and it took a life on its own as a separate reality, appearing and disappearing. And so different entities that they can also take our own resemblance. And I saw it many times as well. And that can be frightening. But at the same time, as people of science, what we do, we'll try to explain it somehow, right? And those somehow would be the imprints, like holographic imprints of us, somewhere probably in a parallel reality somewhere at a different frequency.
Well,
But
it's
why?
that's fascinating. You can talk about, like you said, a parallel kind of
Parallel realities,
universe that somehow,
yeah.
somehow cross through. But also in the paranormal, what Keith just described is like a classic doppelganger case where it's a look-alike of the person who's seen at a different location. So Keith, was home, but his coworkers saw him at this event. It's usually considered an omen or supernatural phenomena. When somebody is.
I felt very uneasy when they told me that, only because the outcome of Ron. I felt very like.
Okay, well, guys, let's just dismantle completely this doppelganger scare to people, right? They say that, ooh, something awful happens after that. Now, when was it that your friends saw your doppelganger?
Oh, this was this was October of 2022.
22, and nothing happened so far. Everything is fine.
Everything's fine.
So that's good.
Yeah, everything's fine. There's been no other sightings, but it was interesting, and I believe nothing is by coincidence. I was, like I said, I had a horrible physical accident. I was in a lot of pain. That's why I skipped going to meet up with them. I also felt, really wanted to be at this wine tasting. So I had two high emotional things going on mentally in my head. I don't know if that gave rise to why I was walking around a wine event 15 minutes from my house, where they, to this day, will nudge me like, come on, dude, was that you? And I tell them no. It's just weird timing. But I always go back to Rhonda and the 3 times that I saw her. Like I said, one, she interacted with me, 2 times was as the gray lady. But the white lady was like watching a movie. It was like watching a videotape. She was just going left to right, emotionless, stoic, no interaction whatsoever. And that's what they said when they saw me. I walked in, didn't interact with none of the people there. I was able to maneuver through crowds. And then one of them got up because they thought I missed them. And he was coming to, have people take you by the arms. Hey, we're over here. But no, by the time he was able to get to the hallway.
Well, if you think about it, were you there at that wine tasting before, and did you take the same route?
I was just going to ask that question.
Oh yeah, I've been there plenty of times. I've been that same winery Friday.
So it could have been, almost like a residual haunting of yourself for some reason. But like you said too, you were in a heightened state. You had a lot going. You could have telepathically produced your image there. So that's very fascinating. Got a few more questions for you. But first, you guys are listening to Science and the Paranormal, and we're broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network, the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and on Roku TV. Couple quick, interesting paranormal announcements as well. Anyone that is looking to take any paranormal courses, we have some summer courses coming up, taught by Dr. Yana and myself. It's going to be teaching applied therapeutic hypnosis, and that starts July 2nd. I'm going to be teaching an 8-week ghosts and hauntings course on July 3rd. And then I'll also be teaching the 4-week poltergeist phenomena course starting July 22nd. And we are talking about poltergeist tonight. If you are interested in finding out more about those courses or signing up, please go to ppri.net. And also, the 2024 Halifax Paranormal Symposium is only 120 some days away. So make sure, if you plan on attending, to get your tickets, and you can get those by going to ppri.net/tickets. It'll be held at the Halifax Tower Hotel and Conference Center on Saturday. The supernatural awaits you. Now, Keith, one fascinating thing I found is when you had the parapsychologists come and investigate your house, they had captured a couple of electronic voice phenomena, but it was interesting. there was one clip, I think they actually show the video. They did a talk on your investigation, and they show the video, and it was only the two of them home. So there was only two males home. And they actually recorded an electronic voice phenomena of a female's voice. That, to me, is absolutely fascinating because there was no female present in the house when that recording was made. Any idea on who that female was? Do you think it was the former resident that had hurt themselves?
No, it's a good question. I never thought as to could have been once again Rhonda, but I know the voice you're referring to, and there are several other female voices that they've captured with listening devices. Some they heard just with the naked ear, just blurred out in the air. But they found interesting with the both female and male voices and children voices. Was a lot of more Irish accent. I don't know if the one you referred to was Irish accent, but these voices, and I tell people all the time because TV has done a bad job in explaining EVP, in my opinion. These voices they're capturing, a lot of them, and once again, these are links to in my books. The voices that they capture are sentences, very enunciating words, well within the context of what's happening at that moment. I think the one you're referring to was they were setting up some equipment.
Yes.
And, doing some sort of similar countdown, and one of the female voice said, "I on 3."
Yes.
In conjunction as he was trying to count down to capture Steve Martin. You tell whoever you're watching, hey, we're going live, and then a voice came in on 3. But that happened a lot. There's always something talking underneath the investigators when they were at the Bothell House. I tell people, have your voice recorder or whatever device or video on and replay it back or whatever, and you may hear something underneath you. And then, there you go. But yeah, a lot of female voices. I think when it came down, when we finally, start quantifying the voices, we came up with 11 distinct voices, meaning the octave level and whatnot of each voices and the voice patterns of 11 different individuals.
Wow.
And like I said, children, male, female, child, a lot of female voices.
Were they, obviously, I haven't heard every single EVP in the house. I found that one absolutely fascinating just because there was no females present at the time when it was recorded.
Right. Yeah.
But were there that didn't speak English? And I asked that because I want to get into how you did some research on where the house was built and also the symbol that was showing up in your home that you had analyzed and what the results of that were. But did any of the voices that you captured, were they all English, or was there any that were a different language?
Well, they were all English, but like I said, they all had, well, not all, but majority had Irish accents. And that's just weird. But it's not weird, like I said, if you do your research. And I put this in my second book because why all Irish or majority Irish accents? Well, I did. Anybody can go after me and do similar research because it's the city of Bothell. And I went to Bothell Historical Center, and I was able to find out that back in the mid-1800s when Bothell was founded, it was majority Irish. They had a mass flux of Irish settlers, okay? And they positioned it and took a stake out of the city of Bothell. Bothell, like the state of Washington or California and Oregon, was heavy into lumber, okay? Lumber back then, cleared out. And it gave birth to the Pacific Northwest. It was like oil is to Texas, lumber. Well, like you were saying, the black oil, we started having on my office wall symbols. First few were of an upside down cross. First few were the cliche 666, whatever. And those are relatively easy to clean with warm soap and water. Nerve-wracking, but very easy to clean. Then it started becoming the black oil tar-like substance. And that cannot be cleaned with the warm soap and water. That has to be painted over. So now I'm trekking to the paint store buying paint to paint over these black markings. And the first black markings that you see in the pictures is an upside down man. It's an upside down stick figure of a man. And it just looked weird, but like I said, nothing is by, happenstance. So why upside down man? And one day I just Googled, I say, hey, upside down man, question mark, hit enter. And it brought me to these Native American pages with the identical symbol.
Mm.
And then it said underneath what that means. It says this symbol means, there's only two meanings. It means a man has died or man is about to die. Now, the about to die kind of made me feel kind of uneasy. But it also said that Native Americans, when they draw the symbol, they don't draw for every death. Whatever. You trip over a rock or get eaten by a cougar. Nobody's going to draw upside down man. No. It's only when you die as a result of murder or smallpox or disease. Okay? So the disease was very interesting to me. So I went back to the libraries in Bothell and Snohomish County, and I learned, just like in other parts of the America, especially the Pacific Northwest, Bothell included, is there was a mass extermination of Native Americans through smallpox. Native Americans in Bothell were purposely given or withheld the smallpox vaccine because when it was during the clearing out of the land, of the tree chopping, and the Irish came in, the Irish settlers, there were
I didn't know they had vaccines at that time.
I didn't either. That's why it blew me away. Yeah, that's why it blew me away. I didn't know that.
Wow.
And so they was chopping down the trees, and there was factions. It was wars. It was the wars breaking out between the natives and the settlers. And then finally, when smallpox broke out, it was a bad winter. I think in the city of Bothell alone, over 500 to 800 Native Americans lost their lives through smallpox. And then from Vancouver, Canada, the southern part, including Vancouver Island, pretty much all the way down North Oregon, over about 1.5 million Native Americans lost their lives to smallpox. Mm-hmm. So the coast, I'm talking about the coast of North America, think Vancouver Island, go all the way down to Northern Oregon. The coast was littered with Native American with smallpox carcasses. And Bothell was no exception. Well, in Bothell, they just put the Native Americans in mass graves. Okay.
For anyone that's actually watching the video there, you can see those images that we're talking about that Keith took. That is the upside down person in black bone char.
Yeah, so get into the black bone char. So what I did, once again, because this is the 21st century, is I chiseled off a piece of that black substance you see, and I was able to get it tested. And I never heard of bone char or bone black. I never heard of that. That's not something I'm familiar with. But the analysis came back that this is not any paint substance. This is what the analysis came back with. And the long story version in my second book, but the condensed version is this is not paint material. This is not paint. But it's bone char, bone ash. Now, if you Google bone char, bone ash, you will find out that bone char, bone black, bone ash is one of the oldest forms of calligraphy, pictography paint. Okay? It's what Native Americans used and other civilizations used. And it's made out of 100% out of incinerated buffalo or bison bone. Okay? And what they did in the mid 1800s to early 1900s when we were having near the mass extermination of trees, the middle of the country was having near the mass extermination of buffalo, where there was so much buffalo carcass littered throughout North America's continent that everything was used for something. And so they reduced, you took the skin, the meat, you left down with pretty much the skeleton, you don't use the head. They incinerated the buffalo bone down to a powder. It's very charcoal. It's one of the oldest form of filtration bone black when it's incinerated, becomes a powdery deal. And it becomes a reason for paint or black paint. You cannot buy it at your Home Depot. You cannot go to your local paint store. You can try and ask for bone.
I can imagine.
I always say that when I'm lecturing, Keith, I talk about that part. In my demonology part, I talk about reports of blood or other substances appearing on the wall. And I always tell people, this is more of an extreme phenomena that I've never witnessed myself. But I said I do know somebody that has witnessed this. And I always share your book cover and reference you and reference your book. And I talk about the black bone char, and I said, he had it analyzed, and it's not something in Canada. We have what's called Canadian Tire, would be like the American version. We have Home Depot as well, but I always say it's not something you can go and get a Canadian Tire. And of course, the audience usually laughs when I say that. But it's really, really, like you said, it's not readily available. So if somebody's going to fake this or hoax this, it's not something you're going to easily get your hands on.
Exactly. You see, you showed them one wall. The book and the website tomorrow will show that was on every wall, including the ceiling. And I brought many painters and contractors in, and so did the investigators, because they're trying to rule out hoaxing and hokery and fakery. How could they do that? How would they do that? And number one, most important, how much time would they need to do that? And the painters who've been doing this 25, 35 years said it would take an enormous amount of time, number one. We've all had painters come in our house, or we paint ourselves. And we know the prep and the setup it takes before you even apply paint, right? Most of these things you saw on when you showed you the picture happen within minutes. Meaning, I went to the store, Tina went to the store, get something, come back, that's there. Okay, these things happen very quickly. No human being could have done that. It would take an enormous amount of time, including especially the ceiling. All things, bone char included, has to adhere to the laws of gravity. Any painter would tell you painting the ceiling is extremely difficult, requires a lot of time and effort, calculation and carrying. Because as soon as that paint hits the ceiling, gravity is gonna yank it off the ceiling. And you see that stuff on there. So it's just those things. Once again, the smallpox that can't make up, because that did happen. That's documented in the city of Bothell. The Irish settlers, that's documented in the city of Bothell. So you got the EVPs, Irish accent, and you got people where a high percentage at that time back then were Irish, and that's documented. So
fascinating, absolutely fascinating. I am so glad that you wrote about it. And of course, you had to go through such horrendous experience for the entire duration of the 4 years. And of course, I'm not praising that experience, but that led you to publish that book. And not only that, not only your personal account, but actually the external evidence of what was happening there, because a lot of the times people may not even believe us. Yeah, we went through that experience, but where is the evidence? And you provide that evidence, which is wonderful.
Yeah, it's very slick. I'm a paperback guy, as you can see, but
so
and the links,
is that the real
and the links
house?
are still. And the links are still in here, but I think the ebook way, I could see that being very attractive to people, because you said you just click the link, brings you to the evidence. But anyone that is interested in this, you got to get the Bothell Hell House book written by Keith Linder. It's available on Amazon in both formats, but I am a paperback guy.
I have something tangible, and I like the full pages and highlight and underline. So old school.
That's how we do research. Exactly. The old school, it's supposed to be not the old school, but the regular school, right? And nowadays it's all digitalized, and I can't even read it. I need to have my pencil.
All that.
Yeah. Right. And I need to flip pages. I need to remember where it was, because I'm very visual. Yeah.
I'm a folded corner of the page.
Oh, yeah.
Folded in half. And yeah, that's me.
Well, we'll have to have you back again, Keith. Like I said, I know I've interviewed you before on another podcast, and I mean, yeah, it's just such a fascinating case. So many different things. A few things we didn't even get to touch on, but
and thank you for finding time to be with us today.
Yeah, appreciate you coming on again. I always follow your stuff on Twitter and Facebook there, or I guess X now, but yeah.
Yeah. No, thanks for having me a second or third time. And like I said, if anybody has questions, if you have questions or want to have me back on, let me know. I'm real huge on sharing information and busting up they say, a lie travels around the world while a truth just not putting the shoes on. There's a lot of it's about poltergeist or anything for that matter. So I'm always trying to get that evidence into people's hands organically, unedited and raw, so people can make up their own minds.
That's wonderful, because pretty soon we won't have that much of a raw evidence anymore. Everything is going to be AI'd.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we need to publish it, and not only have in the digital form, before we all extinct like dinosaurs in our books. So yeah, we're going to use books, guys, and do it the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, you've been live with us on United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM, with Science and the Paranormal, with fantastic Dr. Elliot and Dr. Yana. And you were listening to this incredible conversation with Keith Linder and about his book and experience, the Bothell Hell House. Ooh. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us tonight. And if you can sleep peacefully tonight, please do. Don't think about the Hell House. You can think about it tomorrow and investigate that. So up until then, meet us next Tuesday at the same time. We will be here. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
Take care, guys. See you next week.
Bye.
Thanks again, Keith.
Thank you.